Hi everyone and welcome back to another episode of Discard Dead, where we like to open boosters, boxes and decks of out-of-print trading card games. I will go over the Terminator card game by Precedence as part of my mission parameters. I have detailed files on different cards. Main characters are your fighting force. The Resistance has soldiers, while Skynet has Terminators. When deck building, you cannot use both factions at once. They have the following details. Each character has a name. Speed measures how far they can move during the game every turn, but also how hard they are to hit in combat. Power is how much damage they can inflict in combat, as well as how much they can withstand. Once a character's power drops to 0, they are dead. The text box details any special abilities the character has, as well as a caption on the bottom. This is the resource box, detailing skills and characteristics. They also allow them to be targeted by certain card effects or events. Written in white are the card's resources, while restrictions are written in yellow. For example, only a Skynet resource can use Skynet items. Along the border here is either a regiment identifier for Resistance characters or a call sign ID for Skynet characters. Terminators have a production cost, which is how much it costs to field, and some Terminators have an infiltration attribute as long as it has the infiltrator resource. Supporting characters are identities that are found during the game. They have speed and power, but also an importance value which is used to determine victory. Supporting characters are controlled while with a main character and can perform actions such as declaring attacks, searching, moving, etc. They cannot perform actions if they become out of control or when left alone by themselves. They also have restrictions that determine which scenario they can be played in and where they can be found. Locations are scenes from the movie that are played during the player location step of the staging round. Characters can move to and from them to explore, search for equipment or other characters, and to hide at. Exterior locations represent key locations that you'd come across in the city, and all location cards with the same name on either player's playfield count as the same card for movement purposes. Interior locations are always distinct. If the location has any special effects, they will be listed in the text box. Should a location become damaged and gain the damaged resource, the effect box is ignored. Items are weapons or equipment that can be found during the search round or built during the production step. Once found or built, they can be used when appropriate. Animals, drones, or hunter-killers may not search for, pick up, or use items. Only Skynet characters can use Skynet items, and only Resistance characters can use Resistance items. Items always have restrictions that show where it can be found. The Trenchcoat item card, for example, has the equipment resource, so can only be found at locations that also have the equipment resource. You cannot stack bonuses of multiples of an item card for each one equipped, and once the item card gets the damage resource, its effects are ignored. Events can only be played at an appropriate time described on the card and are resolved after playing. If multiple events would affect a particular ability, such as to hit or defense, only one can be applied while the rest are ignored, although other cards can be played in addition to event cards. Any number of event cards can affect a character's attributes, however, such as speed or power, increasing them or decreasing them together. Unless stated, the effects of an event card expire at the end of the round, unless they have permanent in the effect box, meaning they will continue to affect the game or character until the game ends or until discarded. In addition to detailing when it can be used, some events also have other restrictions detailing who can use them or which scenarios they can be played in. Some also have a combat pool measure showing how much must be spent in order to play it, reserved for potentially powerful events. Players may play a single condition card before the start of the game, before even starting locations, items, and characters. Conditions are optional, however. They are revealed at the same time, and if both players reveal the same condition card, they are not cumulative. In some cases, the effects of a condition card may affect each player, not just the owner. Missions are hidden agendas that characters attempt to accomplish. Each mission card details when it can be used, and only one can be played per round, which is set aside when completed to be counted towards a mission point victory. Timing requirements are critical for mission cards, and should a player miss the opportunity to play it, it will need to be completed a second time. Each mission card has an effect text box featuring the mission requirements and the mission point value. This is your play area, referred to as your heads-up display or HUD. On the bottom here is your location deck, draw deck, and your discard pile. This row is designated for exterior location cards, and this row for interior locations. When deck building, refer to your scenario guide, as cards with certain resources or restrictions may or may not be used. In the termination scenario, for example, which we will look at later, cards with a future resource or restriction cannot be included in decks. Your draw deck includes at least 40 cards. You may have one of each unique card and up to 3 of any other card. You may include any number of any item card as you like. Resistance players may use 1 copy of each main character, while Skynet players are not restricted in how many of the same Skynet character they have in play. In addition to your draw deck, a separate 9-card location deck is required, whose restrictions are determined by the scenario. The Terminator operates on RS order, where each player acts during each phase of each turn, the resistance going first, then passing to Skynet. Turns are divided into 5 separate rounds, some of which are divided into separate steps and then further into segments. If both players cannot act at any time, the segment, step, or round progresses to the next, until the end of the turn. In the instance of multiple players using the same factions, before conditions are chosen, players that share factions should roll a die to determine who acts first for the rest of the game. Characters, items, locations, and events are set upright and considered ready until required to rotate to perform certain actions, referred to as main actions. Actions that require rotating include, but are not limited to, declaring an attack, searching, activating certain card effects, picking up items, dragging another character. We'll look at that later. A rotated character may not perform an action until readied again. A character who entered combat may not search later on in the same turn, for example. Step 1. Protection. Many scenarios require players to protect supporting characters to win. To protect supporting characters, they must be rotated at a particular location during this step, who are removed from play along with their equipped items. Note that you cannot protect a supporting character if there are any opposing characters at that location. Hidden characters will not oppose, however, unless they reveal themselves. Step 2. Play location. Play the top card from your location deck or a location card from your hand. If you pull a duplicate of a non-distinct location that you already have in play, remove it from play and draw until you find a playable card. New exterior location cards are placed at either the left or right of your exterior location row in your HUD. Interior locations are played above an exterior or interior location already in play. New locations can never be played into an opponent's HUD. Players can reveal any duplicate, non-distinct locations in their hand already in their HUD and remove them from play. All starting locations are considered distinct. Step 3. Movement. After playing locations, characters can now be moved. Characters get movement points equal to their speed, and passing between locations cost 1 point. Characters may move together as a group, but a character without movement points cannot move at all. Duplicate non-distinct locations in both players' HUDs count as the same location and can be used to access another player's HUD. For example, both players have the Tech Noir and Dumpster location cards, so are considered the same location. Isolated Side Street and City Street are not, as their names are different. Sergeant Reese is at the Tech Noir next to the Dark Alley, and the Terminator is at the Tech Noir next to the Alamo Sports Shop. If Reese wanted to go to the Dumpster, he could go via the Dark Alley or the Alamo Sports Shop. Characters at locations with more opposing characters than them are outnumbered and reduce their movement points by 1 for each extra opposing character. If Sergeant Reese starts his turn alone with 4 Terminators, his movement points are reduced to 0. 3 for his starting speed, and -3 for each additional opposing character. If he started with his full team of 4 members, neither team is outnumbered as they are equal in members. Step 4. Production. In future-related scenarios, Skynet players control armies of infiltrators, drones, and hunter-killer Terminators. Skynet characters and items are brought into play by paying production cost at an appropriate location. Segment 1. Generate production at undamaged locations with the factory resource by rotating any number of drones to generate that much production. Segment 2. Next, spend production to build characters, Skynet items, or as currency for other cards. Any characters paid for in this way are placed rotated from your hand at that location. Items are also played from your hand, unless they are upgrades which are immediately and permanently attached to a Skynet character. Unused production is lost at the end of this segment. Players can now discard cards from their hand and draw back to their hand size, determined by the scenario. If your hand exceeds your hand size, you cannot draw more unless you discard to below your hand size, but you are not forced to discard to meet your hand size. Note that event cards and card effects cannot be played during this round, and location cards may not be discarded. The combat round comprises of 3 steps and are completed in order: declaring attacks, resolving ranged attacks, and resolving close combat attacks. Step 1. Declaring attacks. Characters rotate when declaring attacks, whether ranged or close combat, as well as the target and any items used for the attack. Close combat and short-ranged attacks can only target characters at the same location, while long-ranged attacks can target characters at the same or an adjacent location. Segment 1. Declare unhidden close combat. Rotate characters who are not hidden who want to make close combat attacks. Segment 2. Declare unhidden ranged combat. Rotate characters who are not hidden who want to make ranged attacks. Segment 3. Declare hidden close combat. Reveal and rotate any hidden characters who want to make close combat attacks. Segment 4. Declare hidden ranged combat. Reveal and rotate any hidden characters who want to make a ranged attack. Step 2. Resolve ranged attacks. Resolve ranged attacks weapons first. Characters who did not declare attacks in the declaration step may not now do so unless another card allows them. All ranged attacks are resolved simultaneously. Segment 1. Resolve hits. Attackers add any to hit bonuses and then roll a die. Defense or to hit abilities cannot be altered after the die roll. If the to hit bonuses and die roll together beats the target's defense ability, which is their speed plus modifiers, the attack has hit, otherwise the attack fails. Segment 2. Resolve damage. Subtract the target's resistance, which is their power plus any armor, from the damage score, which is the weapon damage plus modifiers, and put that many counters on the target. Step 3. Resolve close combat. After ranged combat, we can now resolve close combat, mostly in the same fashion, but using different abilities. Segment 1. Resolve hits. This works exactly the same as in the resolved ranged hits. Add your to hit bonus to a die roll and get above the target's defense. Segment 2. Resolve damage. The attacker's damage is equal to the power plus any modifiers plus a weapon bonus if one is being used. Subtract the defender's resistance from the total damage and put that many counters on the defender. Effects of damage. Damage directly affects characters by reducing their speed, power, and infiltration attributes by 1, and they suffer a -1 penalty when rolling to hit for each damage counter. Speed cannot go below 0, and a character dies if their power reaches 0. Dead characters are removed from play, and dead supporting characters are set aside to tabulate a Skynet importance victory. Dead Skynet characters are simply discarded. Any items a character had when they died are left at the location. Also, since damage resolves simultaneously, a character cannot be healed in the middle of a shot to save their life. Step 1. Declare search action. Characters may rotate to search their current location. If an item or supporting character card is in your hand, they can be found by searching a location that matches that resource, or if the card is restricted to that location. Normally you can only find cards in your hand, but other cards can allow characters to find cards in your deck instead. Step 2. Find items and characters. Players may now play cards found from their declared searches. A player may not simply use a first aid kit from their hand, it must first be found in this fashion. Items are attached to searching characters, and found support characters may not search during this turn. Depending on the scenario, Resistance and Skynet players will have different victory conditions. The game will end immediately when a victory condition has been met. The standard victory condition is eliminating each member of the opposing side. Second victory conditions include importance victories, by either rescuing or terminating a certain number of importance points worth of support characters, or a mission victory, by acquiring a specific number of mission points, and so on. The following are rules that apply to each player. Victory. When a player fulfills any of their victory conditions determined by the scenario, they immediately win the game.
Hidden movement. Characters can move hidden when equipped with certain items, unless they are outnumbered or injured. When moving hidden, take a number of tokens determined by the card. One token must have a mark on the bottom to identify the mover, and the rest are blank decoys. When moving, the player uses the markers instead of the actual character. Hidden tokens have a +1 defense greater than the printed value. If 2 or more tokens representing the same character are at the same location, remove markers until 1 is left at the end of the turn. If a hidden character acquires more decoys, place them before movement. Markers may be revealed if voluntarily revealed, if they are hit, or when they declare an attack or search. Hidden characters must be revealed when they need to interact with locations. Attacks against hidden markers proceed as normal, but are revealed if hit, and ignoring damage if against a decoy. If a hidden character is revealed, all decoys are removed.
Manipulating items. Characters can spend a movement point during their movement step to pick up an item. Alternatively, they may rotate during the search. A character may drop an item at any time during the movement or search round, and hunter-killers, drones, and animals can never pick up or use items. Dragging characters. Characters may rotate and spend 1 extra movement point per location to drag another character that has not yet moved. The character dragged is immediately rotated and lose all movement for the rest of the turn. This is useful for moving injured characters. Environmental damage. Special forms of damage that stem from potent or pervasive environments that ignore armor and resistance, such as plasma. Combat pool. Representing awareness, mental readiness, tactical ability, or fitness of a player's forces. Many powerful cards require spending combat pool tokens. You only start with a set number and are spent over the course of the game without being refreshed between turns or rounds. Free attacks. Free attacks don't require the character to rotate and can be used outside the combat round. They are granted by certain event cards. A free attack starts a complete combat sequence that must be resolved before play can continue. A free attack cannot interrupt another free attack, and multiples must each resolve in order. Timing issues. If card timing disputes arise, resolve it by applying any applicable card effects, one at a time in RS order. Event cards are resolved as soon as they are played. RS order is useful to determine who goes first if multiple players wish to play event cards at the same time. Duration. All events are discarded after resolving on the turn they are played, unless a specific duration is written on the card. Some duration examples are permanent, or lasts 5 turns, or lasts until the end of turn. For events that have a specific turn duration, you can use counters to mark how long they will last, removing 1 at the end of each search round, discarding it when the last counter is removed. Resistance rule protection. When a support character is protected, they are rotated at a specific location as determined by the scenario and are removed from the game. They are set aside for tabulating importance, and when the necessary amount of importance points of worth of characters have been protected, the player immediately wins. Note: supporting characters cannot be protected if there is an opposing character at the location. A hidden character will not intervene unless they choose to reveal themselves. Skynet rule, infiltration. Some Terminators are designed to pass as human and are called infiltrators. They have the infiltrator resource and the infiltration attribute. An infiltrator may control supporting characters the same way as resistance characters as long as their infiltration is higher than 0, and each damage counter reduces infiltration by 1. Scenarios outline the structure of your game. Here I will outline the parameters for the Termination scenario, which was considered the tournament standard. Termination is essentially an expanded version of the first Terminator movie. Skynet sends an infiltration Terminator unit to dispatch the ancestors of Skynet's enemies, while the Resistance sends soldiers to protect them. The Resistance has a hand size of 5, plus 1 for each living leader card. They start with 3 main characters, including 1 leader. Their starting location is the pawn shop and have a combat pool of 3. They win if they can destroy all Skynet main characters, protecting 10 importance points worth of supporting characters over a minimum of 3, or by acquiring 10 mission points. Skynet has a hand size of 5. They start with a single Terminator with the infiltrator resource. Their starting location is the Alamo Sports Shop and a combat pool of 3. Up to 20 production points may be spent on your Terminator and upgrades they start with, as long as they still have the infiltrator resource before the game starts. They win if they can terminate all resistance characters, terminate 10 importance points worth of supporting characters, or by acquiring 10 mission points. Each player uses a location deck of 9 location cards with the past or future resource, including no more than 3 distinct locations. The resistance player should include the police station, as it will be crucial to protecting supporting characters. Depending on how much production the Skynet player uses, each player may start at different times. If too much or too little production is spent, the resistance player may start turns ahead or behind, respectively. Thank you for your time in going over the Terminator card game with me. Hopefully this information serves you well in whatever time you find yourself in. Like and subscribe. I'll be back.